to be able to try to enable that vision by working to reduce and eliminate discrimination in Anne Arundel County. I'd like to, at this point, go ahead and say to the commission, before I take the roll call, that we'll be without our secretary tonight. Mary's under the weather, and so she will be able to record your presence through the transcript that is done. I also want to point out that this meeting has been enabled to provide transcripts. So for those that need transcripts to follow the meeting, that will be available. So with that, let me begin and see if I can get through calling roll here. When I call your name, unmute and say present or here, and that'll consist of taking a roll. Start with Commissioner Hatcher.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Karpowicz.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Call.
Present.
Commissioner Edwards.
Present.
Commissioner Clapsaddle.
Present.
Commissioner Olatosin.
Present.
Have I missed anybody that just joined us? Okay. By count, I think we have enough members. We need 7 to take any votes that we might want to take tonight, and I believe we've made that threshold. Okay, so let me move to the minutes. Tonight, we won't be presenting the minutes from the January 18th meeting because Mary's not available, and she said that they will be available at our next meeting to go ahead and review and then move from there. Okay, I'd like to now move to a very exciting part of our meeting, which is a discussion and presentation about housing and the way that the different organizations in Anne Arundel County, at least 3 of the organizations in Anne Arundel County, approach housing in Anne Arundel County, and also any ways in which they interact in terms of looking at issues of housing discrimination, if that's part of their that's part of their mission. Let me introduce folks, and please bear with me as I do this. Commissioner Aaron Sherman Karpowicz is Executive Director of the Anne Arundel County Community Development Services, Inc. Melissa Maddox Evans is Executive Director and CEO of the Annapolis Housing Authority. And Clifton C. Martin is the CME, CMPO, CM, and Chief Executive Officer. And Clifton, correct me if I get this wrong, because I don't think I put the word in. Executive Officer of the Housing Commission of Anne Arundel County, is that correct?
That's right. Yes.
Okay. So why don't we have the presentations in this way? Each presenter will give a 10 to 12 minute presentation, and then or thereabouts, and then we'll have a brief Q&A for any questions and answers that commissioners might have. So having said that, why don't we begin with Commissioner Karpowicz. Glad that you're here. You were part of the effort that got voting rights for our student member and added a needed component to the commission, since we deal with by statute issues of housing discrimination, housing an expert who has expertise in the county on housing development, etc. So Commissioner Karpowicz, please take on. Commissioner Karpowicz, are you muted?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I must have. Okay. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, I
Okay,
can.
great. Thanks, Chair Peterson. I'm thrilled to be here tonight, not just because I get to present and talk about something that I love, but also as a new commissioner. I think the last time I presented to the Human Relations Commission was several years back, and we were still talking about getting a fair housing law on the books and codifying the Human Relations Commission. So I feel like, we have a lot of work still to do, but we've also come a long way. And so I'm really excited to be here in this role as a commissioner. And also, I've been around Anne Arundel County for a long time and at Arundel Community Development Services for a long time, but I just took over as the Chief Executive Officer. Well, actually, it was Executive Director, but then our board changed my name. Same job, just a new title, and I've only been on the job for a month. But so I'm the new CEO of ACDS, and just to tell you all a little bit about ACDS. Let's see, there we go. We are the county's nonprofit housing and community development agency. We're different than the Housing Commission. Cliff will talk about that. But we administer the county's federal housing and community development funds, block grant funds that we get through HUD, as well as some different sources of competitive federal funding, state funding. And then we also administer a lot of grants on behalf of Anne Arundel County, a lot of community development grants through the local development council and the county executives community support grants. We're also administering a lot of the American Rescue Plan funds on behalf of the county. But tonight I'm going to mostly focus on our affordable housing work and kind of what drives us there and how that relates a little bit to the Human Relations Commission and the housing side of your charter. So I'm not going to go through all this. I'm happy to provide a copy of this presentation to anyone who's interested. So I'm going to just really dig into the housing. In addition to operating programs and policies around affordable housing, both homeownership and rental housing, ACDS plays a planning and policy advisement role in the county. We've worked on several documents in the last couple years that inform the county's housing and community development strategy. One thing, I'm the past chair of the Baltimore Metropolitan Council's Regional Fair Housing Group, which is a group of other similar agencies in the Baltimore region that came together to develop a regional fair housing plan for the whole region. And that was kind of unique when we did that for the first time back in 1996. And we've just kind of building on it every 5 years or so. And we just had our most recent one that was published in 2020. We also have a consolidated plan that we have to develop every 5 years. And then we also helped work on the county's Plan 2040, which says draft on there, but it's since been passed. And each of these plans have some policies in it that have common elements. And one of the big common elements in these plans that really has to do with fair housing is, in addition to trying to, address overt discrimination, one thing that what we've been trying to do is like stop the disparate impact of discrimination. So that could be, zoning policies or housing policies that may try to, or not, even if they're not intentional, but they have the effect of concentrating low-income households, communities of color, and other protected classes in certain areas. So that really comes into play when you're looking at housing on the regional level, where you can see after years and years of systematic discrimination and redlining, a lot of the affordable housing units are concentrated in Baltimore City, and then the higher income homes and less affordable housing is in the surrounding jurisdictions, and that causes a lot of racial segregation, especially. And so we're trying to ameliorate those impacts and really address those negative consequences of discrimination. And one way that we are doing that, one thing that we recognize is there's a huge need for affordable housing, and that's just been exacerbated by the pandemic. But two, to address that issue that I was speaking of in terms of deconcentrating poverty, we want to look at creating affordable housing in areas of opportunity, and also investing funds in preserving affordable housing in revitalization areas. So we're promoting affordable housing policies that don't just look at increasing the number of units, but also increasing equity where those units are sited. So one way we do that is we make funding available, right? The county makes affordable housing funding for rental housing available. We've typically had about 600,000 that we're able to allocate to the development of affordable rental units each year through our home funds. And for the first time ever, the current administration, the Pittman administration, put $1 million into housing each year to develop affordable housing. So that's a way we subsidize the housing, and then we restrict the rent of the housing to people with low incomes. And so just a couple projects. And so my partners are it just so happens that the partners that are going to be presenting, these are a couple of the projects that we have in our pipeline or were recently finished. So one is really exciting. Brockbridge is in Jessup, and it's 38 units of affordable housing that's going to be constructed. We haven't closed on that, but it's about to close any day, hopefully. And then Newtown 20 is a project that's a partnership with Melissa and the Housing Authority of the City of Annapolis and Penrose. We provided a low interest home loan for that project and helped that get started. And then Mead Village is Cliff's project, and we provided, again, low cost financing so that they could renovate and redevelop Mead Village over in the Severn area. So that's one way we put our funding to work to help people with affordable housing. The other way is we help advise on policies. One policy that we worked on with the administration is the workforce housing legislation. This was passed in 2019. And what it does is it creates the opportunity to build affordable housing in light industrial zones, mixed use zones, and commercial zones where maybe residential housing wasn't permitted otherwise. Now it's permitted as a conditional use. And then also it allows for some upzoning in residential zones. So in where only maybe 5 units per acre is allowed, you can now build up to 22 units. Where only 10 units per acre was allowed, you can now build up to 22, and so on. And that's if the developers, whether they're for-profit developers or nonprofit developers, they need to agree that for homeownership units, at least 40% of the units are affordable to households that are making 100% of the area median income. And for rental units, a portion of those have to be affordable to people making 60%. And there's calculations that we help kind of define for that. And So before I go on to the next slide, I want to say this legislation has been really successful so far, at least in getting projects in the pipeline. Affordable housing and housing in general takes a while to come together, but we have at least a few projects that are specifically affordable housing projects that were funded by our partners at DHCD that are coming through because this legislation made it possible. Oh, and the other thing is this policy also allows developers of these units to get a discount on their water and sewer capital connection fees. They reduced that by 50%, which is a huge cost savings. So, you know, subsidizing things with funding and then also allowing for, you know, these policy innovations to take place that really help spur things. We also worked on the fair housing legislation and the Human Relations Commission legislation that I referred to. And just a couple other things. We have a huge eviction prevention program that we're running to help keep renters housed and avoid eviction. We're doing that throughout the county. We stood up the the state's first eviction prevention program in response to COVID. And we're working with several community partners in the county, administering them funds. And then we're also doing our own program. And we've been able to help over 3,000 renter households since April of, I'm sorry, that's a typo. It should be April 2020. And then we're also providing legal assistance through our community legal partners by providing grant funding and kind of a system of referring people to them. And they've been able to help over 800 renters with legal services and provided direct legal counsel to almost 300 renters. And that's helping us, you know, since October, when we really started tracking the data after the moratorium lifted, we've been able to help about 50 people that were actually served with writs of eviction each month. So it's working with those legal services. So I think, oh, just real quick, I'm not going to go into this. I want to give my colleagues time, but we have home ownership programs that we administer first-time home buyers. It's really hard for them right now. They're graduating from our home ownership counseling class, but they're not graduating, or they're not being able to take advantage of our down payment assistance program because houses are so expensive and the market's so hot. Buyers don't necessarily want to work with first-time home buyers that might have government financing. They're taking, you know, offers that are not contingent upon anything. So that's hard. We do have a foreclosure prevention counseling program, and it's really important that people get to us before they get a foreclosure notice. People aren't really getting foreclosure notices now because there was a moratorium on foreclosures. And I think lenders are trying to work it out with people, but they should really come in and talk to us. It's free. It's available to any homeowner in the county, regardless of their income. So I'm really hoping that we can get your help and ideas on how we might market this. We want to market this program and its availability to communities of color and other protected classes, because we know those groups have been most impacted by the negative financial consequences of COVID-19. So we want to help, you know, get them some assistance. And we also want to preserve and sustain home ownership for those groups. We know that, you know, Black families and Latinx families have a lower rate of home ownership than the county as a whole. And we want to preserve what home ownership units we have, as we also work to grow home ownership in those groups through our program. So very open to ideas from you all on how we can outreach and market. So I will leave it there and pass it on.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Karpowicz. At this point, I guess what I suggested was that if there were some questions now, the commissioners could feel free to put them forward to you. So are there any questions, comments we could? Okay, I don't think I've missed any. Hearing none, I'll go on to thank you again, and now hear from the executive director and CEO of a very important entity in Arundel County, the Annapolis Housing Authority, Ms. Melissa Maddox Evans. Ms. Evans.
Thank you. And I'll just begin sharing my screen. Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for Chair Peterson and commissioners for inviting me today to speak with you about the Annapolis Housing Authority. We are one of a couple housing authorities in the jurisdiction, and we are our purpose is to provide affordable housing solutions to low and moderate income citizens. And one of the things we do, as you see in the cover slide of the presentation, is that we're obligated to provide reasonable accommodations to persons who would like to access our programs and our properties. Our mission at the Housing Authority is to provide quality and attainable housing in safe and attractive communities for families, individuals, the elderly, and persons with disables based upon need and income. Our housing authority was created in 1937 and established through local laws and also through the Maryland Code, which enables through state statute for local jurisdictions to establish housing authorities in order to deal with housing issues in their jurisdiction. And states all throughout the nation were authorized through the U.S. Housing Act of 1937 to authorize local jurisdictions to create housing authorities to make sure the housing needs were met in local cities and towns. We have a staff of about 55 employees now. We have 60 positions at the Housing Authority. We have a 7-member board of commissioners that's appointed by City Council and the mayor. We have different department heads and divisions to handle the different services that we have: property management, finance and administration, resident services, and development services. We have 4 regional property management offices that cover all of our properties. Oftentimes, because we have the city of Annapolis in our name, people associate us with as one of the departments of the city, but we're actually not affiliated in that way with the city of Annapolis. We're created for the city of Annapolis. Our relation to the city of Annapolis is that they are required to appoint our board commissioners, but we're a separate governmental entity. And actually, what's unique about housing authorities is that we're both a governmental entity and a corporation, which allows us the flexibility to provide a variety of housing services. We serve over 1,114 families throughout the Annapolis and Anne Arundel County area, and we serve low to moderate income. So the income ranges can vary depending on the program that we offer. And so, but the ranges usually start around serving persons that earn about 30% of the AMI to about 80%. Some properties do allow for a little bit higher of a AMI. And we have a variety of housing options. So family, single occupancy housing, we have senior and disabled housing, we have mixed income properties. And so there are a variety of options. All of our properties, at all of our properties, we have resident association boards and tenant councils where residents represent to us what their needs are for the communities. And we have a variety of resident programs and services, from classes for the elderly, parenting classes, classes to help persons experiencing domestic violence. We do job training. There are a variety of services. And we also have, which we're proud of, a family self-sufficiency program and a home ownership program. We had about 2 families find homes last year, which is great. We have about a little over 70 persons involved in our family self-sufficiency program, which enables them to enter into a program which allows them to save money towards a goal, which it could be a down payment for a home, or for tuition assistance, or to buy a car if they need transportation to get to work. We offer rental housing only at this time, but housing authorities are able to offer a variety of housing options if they so choose. We have a total of about 857 public housing homes, and that's where the housing authority serves as the landlord and owns the property and rents the property out to the resident. We also have a housing choice voucher program in which we issue vouchers to persons that also qualify and they can find their own home with a private landlord within the community. And we serve the city of Annapolis and Arundel County. Our main programs are the public housing program and the housing choice voucher program, which have very similar criteria for qualifications. And they are income-based with regards to eligibility. And they also have to undergo suitability requirements with background reviews. So at our public housing sites, there are 5 main developments that we have, and we have to serve all persons that apply for housing and that qualify. We do offer and are allowed by HUD to offer local preferences. So we have different categories for those preferences for elderly, disabled persons, working families, displaced persons, victims of domestic violence, and persons experiencing homeless. And so what this means, what a preference enables a person to do is if they claim a preference, they are allowed to move up the wait list. Our general wait list is managed through a date and time process, but if they have if they designate themselves as having this preference, they're allowed by HUD rules and our policy to declare that preference. And so, and the same characteristics are applied to the Housing Choice Voucher Program as well. And there is an independent landlord-tenant relationship, which we also have to require for landlords to comply with our requirements and with fair housing laws. And we'll talk a little bit about that. We also provide vouchers for veterans. Housing authorities are required to comply with many laws, federal regulations that apply to housing authorities and housing entities, state law, local law. We're required to comply with all relevant fair housing and non-discrimination laws, whether they're federal, state, or local. So the housing authority must check the boxes on all those levels and make sure that it's both its programs, the way it administers their programs and their properties themselves are accessible to all persons. And so, and we have to show that through our policies, and we are also monitored by HUD to ensure that we meet those compliance standards. Legally, as I've been stating, we have several requirements. And so a lot of our requirements center around ensuring that the participants of our program receive both substantive and procedural due process. So that means throughout the entire time of tenancy, the rights of our participants have to be protected. And that starts at the application, and it actually starts at our advertising for housing services. And so from the time that we begin advertising, throughout application process, throughout a tenancy with us, and even if we have to reach to the point of a termination process, we are required to comply with fair housing law throughout the entire process. We're required to provide our residents with informal hearings and grievance hearings to contest any type of adverse action that is against them. We're required to provide victims of domestic violence certain protections. We're required to provide persons with disabilities equal access to our programs and our properties. So for example, if for a person who may be mobility impaired, for them to have proper access to our properties, they can request a reasonable accommodation, and we have to comply and conduct that review to provide the reasonable accommodation. We also have to comply if there are language access issues. And this applies not just to our tenancy, it also applies to our employment, our staff. It also applies to all of our contracts and the contractors and persons we contract with. They have to also agree to comply with fair housing law and fair housing requirements. And we are required to report to HUD on this on an annual basis. Our responsibility as a housing authority is to affirmatively further fair housing initiatives, and we're required to show that we are. We have other legal requirements that our agency is required to comply with. We have a voluntary compliance agreement with HUD. which after an initial review, HUD requested that we enter into a voluntary compliance agreement to ensure that we are compliant with all fair housing law in our programs and our policies, and also in our redevelopment projects. And we are also under a consent decree from a recent lawsuit that we entered into a settlement with, which also requires fair housing compliance in all of our programs and redevelopment projects. And that consent decree is in effect for a minimum of 10 years. We have many partners in order to provide the services that we do. And this is just a listing, an example of just a few of the partners. But our goal is, if we cannot provide the service in-house, we will refer our residents to partners that are outside of our agency that we have partnerships with, so they can access the services that they need. And we also have many ways to access our agency. We are on social media and many platforms, and we have a website in which we have to provide public notices for pretty much everything we do. And in the process of us passing or updating policies or having different requirements, we have a notice and comment process that we have to go through to ensure all participants are able to offer comment and participate in the process. And that's the completion of my presentation, and I will entertain any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Melissa, and for your very comprehensive presentation. Any questions, comments from, yes, Commissioner Clapsaddle.
Yes, Ms. Maddox-Evans, what do you consider your biggest stumbling blocks in terms of the implementation? I'm specifically interested in this voucher system, which many property owners who have rental properties are, they try to get around it. So I'm curious what your challenges are,
That's a great question. I think one of the greatest challenges is to try to communicate and promote our program so that local property owners and landlords understand the benefits of offering housing opportunities to our clients. And so the educational process is the most difficult challenge from our perspective, because we would like for as many landlords to participate in our program as possible and offer available properties. Our programs are a consistent source of income for landlords that participate, because they will receive a monthly rental allocation, a housing assistance payment from us if they participate in the Housing Choice Voucher Program. But it's helping landlords understand the benefit of entering into the program that I find to be the most one of the most difficult challenges.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your
affordability also.
Commissioner Hatcher.
Oh, hi. Thank you so much for your presentation. One of the questions I had, I saw that one of the stumbling blocks could have been just trying to get more landlords to partake in the program. So what do we do, or what do you offer to protect the landlord for? I think one of the main things that they're concerned is this type of people come into the home and destroy, or things of that nature. What is set to kind of help protect them against, damage to the property or just mistreatment to their property, so that may be more inviting for them to participate?
Mm-hmm. Well, there are certain incentives that a housing authority can provide if they have the resources. There are sort of bonus incentives that they can try to offer landlords. Some jurisdictions, which this takes actually a partnership, not just with the housing authority, but with local, state, and county housing resources, they create landlord mitigation funds, which allow landlords to access those funds if they have an occasion which they might experience damage in their unit. I think that's a idea that should be considered for this jurisdiction. Also, because our program requires compliance, if it is through the investigation and finding out exactly what happened with this particular tenant, we can offer the landlord the opportunity to house another tenant and remove that tenant from that particular household if it's found, particularly after going through a legal process, that the tenant the original tenant was not compliant. So because there's such a great need for housing, we don't have a shortage of persons that are available for the landlord to choose from. And they are allowed to do their own screenings, of course, with certain limitations.
Commissioner Edwards, do you
Thank
have a
you.
question? No. Commissioner Call?
Hi, I just had a quick question. You said that the property owners are allowed to do their own screening. What entails in that? Is that a credit check? Is it a background check? Could you give more information on that?
Sure. It usually entails, sometimes it can entail a credit check, although we encourage landlords to not go that route because most of our participants are in a difficult situation, but they do have the right to conduct criminal background checks. And so they have to meet the criteria that HUD allows in terms of the type of criteria that you can exclude a tenant for, but they are allowed to do criminal background checks.
What about recent history, like their history of rentals? Are they allowed to do that?
Yes, definitely. They are allowed to review rental history. If a person has on their record that they have already been evicted from a federally subsidized housing, that can constitute a bar to being able to participate until that 3-year period has passed. There are certain exceptions in which they can appeal that, and there is a process to even appeal that type of denial for assistance. But yes, if there is a negative rental history, the landlord does have the right to exclude, particularly if there's an eviction on record and or if there are some or large sums of payments owed to another landlord that they're coming from. So that tends to be a challenge at times.
Thank you.
Do you have another question, Commissioner Hatcher?
Yes, I just have one more question. So we've, the commissioners, we've attended a couple of trainings where we spoke about discrimination and how to protect the person that's seeking housing against that discrimination. So do your program allow kind of criteria to the renter as to how to avoid discriminating based off of, criminal background, credit score, or, is there something set for them to follow?
Yes. So if they are running into a situation, we're actually required to inform our applicants and our participants of their fair housing rights and the mechanism in which to not only what their rights are, but the mechanism in which they can file a complaint and pursue representation if need be. And so in the execution of all of our programs and services, we actually have to also inform them how to pursue a fair housing claim. Even if the claim is against us, we have to inform them as to how that they can pursue that claim. That's actually required. It's required in a lot of our correspondence with residents through the letters that we send, our public notices, and our leases. And so those are the kind of things that HUD checks when they check for our compliance to make sure in our notices that we are informing residents of what their fair housing rights are, because it could be a complicated process to pursue.
Any further questions? I guess I'd like to ask about the concern that rose immediately to me, where we saw 1,000 people on the waiting list. And I guess I would throw this out not only to you, Melissa, but to Commissioner Karpowicz and to Mr. Martin. What can we do about this? It just seems, what happens to these people? Are they in homeless shelters? Some of them probably have children. Some of them probably are disabled. Some of them probably care for elderly siblings, parents. So I'm anxiously awaiting your response.
Sure. And I'm sure Aaron and Cliff will agree with me that I think the solution is more affordable housing options. There needs to be an increase in the availability of housing opportunities. To us, there's no way around that because the need is so great. And it is concerning for us because we have to maintain a wait list. It's actually a fair housing requirement that we do so. That we cannot offer housing services to everyone that needs it at the time that they need it. And so there is a lengthy process to get our housing services. But more affordable housing, that would be the solution.
Yeah, I would just echo that and add on that, the producing more units is what's really needed right now. The demand is, it's simple. The supply and demand. And I think by producing more affordable units that are restricted, that will help ease some of the, because right now, we did a study and a lot of the units that are, in the affordable range, they're being occupied by people with higher incomes because there's also not enough affordable housing kind of at the moderate income level as well. So those people are occupying a lot of the units that are more affordable for low or would be more affordable for low income.
And I would just offer, I'm really fortunate that I get to participate on a national level with a lot of organizations. And so we're going to focus on, there's definitely a need for more affordable housing. But then there's also this discussion about why are so many people on this list? Why do they need to be on this list? And there's bigger issues at play, which is education, disparate and equitable issues with education and health and geography and abilities and so it goes very, very, very deep. We're the housers, but we know that there's no reason that there should be so many people that are in this situation that really need it and they aren't able to achieve or to get to financial a great financial place where they may not need this. And so we haven't done a good job as a nation on many, many levels.
All right, Commissioner Call.
I have two short questions. In regards to the pandemic and COVID, do you think that has played a role in more people on the wait list and also less rental properties available because of the housing market? People are trying to sell their houses while the prices are high. Is there any incentives that are available to persuade them not to sell? Is there anything like that? If they decide to sell, how much of a notice do they have to give you? What's required with that? And then in terms of people on the wait list, once they get a home, what do you all offer to get them out and to get them on their feet better? Like, is there any programs that you say, okay, while you live here at this price, can you do this credit class? Can you do X, Y, and Z in order to get you in a better position? Are those resources available as well?
Yeah, I mean, COVID has created a very hostile rental market. It's extremely hostile. The eviction moratorium stalled everything. So everything flatlined. So what happened was renters who may not been paying and, everybody just was afraid to go out and look for apartments. Everybody was afraid to move. Everybody just locked down. And so the entire rental market just went into a complete freeze, which meant you couldn't hardly move anyone. We were issuing vouchers from our agency and the success rate, which means how successful are they at actually finding a place, was the lowest we had ever seen since we've been running the voucher program in 1974. That has since eased a good bit. But yes, that did cause a major problem. And as such, when families couldn't find other resources, they started getting on our waiting list. So the numbers did go up pretty dramatically. Now it has leveled off, which is good. And some have dropped off because things have improved a little bit. But yes, all of those things did happen. And we really felt the pressure there.
Now that you say that, I wonder, I know this might be a little weird, it's not my specialty, but with Airbnb and all of that being so popular, is there any way to contact the host, directly from your department and, persuade them to rent it to you all instead?
We could. Unfortunately, these federal programs has very strict protocol on where you can allow someone to live. So the units have to meet certain spatial requirements. They have, so it's, unfortunately, it's very prescriptive. So there are certain things that just aren't going to work for the program. You'd think, well, wow, couldn't you do it in a hotel room? No, the federal program's not really going to allow you to lease hotel rooms. So unfortunately, there's a lot of creative ideas, but unfortunately, the federal government is a little far behind on creativity and giving us some flexibility.
But we do offer programs for residents as far as financial counseling, when they're about to enter into a home ownership situation, how to maintain consistency, how to deal with other issues that might be impacting their financial issues. So we have extensive programs with regards to assisting individual families in their goal towards self-sufficiency.
Yeah, the federal family self-sufficiency program is the best thing that has ever come out of housing and urban development. And I have loved this program since the minute it was conceived. And, we have had so many families graduate. I've had families come in on TANF assistance, and I have several that now own their own businesses. And I have one that's making in excess of $300,000 a year from the program, have gone on to home ownership. I have nurses, doctors, business owners that came into public housing on the worst possible, situation and worked through it and took our programs and just really excelled. So they are there for the families. The problem with it is sometimes, which we've seen, and I've been at the Housing Commission for 30 years and worked in all sectors of it, is getting families to self-sufficiency oftentimes isn't just as easy as a class or a course. There are mental health issues. There are issues with their self-esteem, their self-confidence. So some of the families take a lot longer and need a lot of different types of services. And then they stumble and fall, and you help them to pick back up again. But the programs are there and they're really good. It's just a commitment that the family has to make. And sometimes it goes real well, and sometimes it doesn't go real well. And then there are some families that it's just never going to work for. There are too many issues. It's too deep, and there are too many things going on. But you keep trying. You just keep trying. So,
Commissioner Clapsaddle.
Yes, I think that this is a two-way street. The people who have needs have to put some skin in the game, as well as we as agencies and all of you have to come together to assist them. Because I'm of the opinion that I liked what you said, Cliff, when you said people try, they fall down, they try again, and all of that. See, that's important when we look at these people. So we are not going to be a panacea for everyone, but what we are going to do is we're going to offer opportunities and avenues for everyone. Thank you.
Commissioner Edwards.
So my first question was in regards to rental assistance. Is there a timeline on the rental assistance that folks are extended? I know some programs through the city and the county have lasted 6 months. Have we further extended that timeline, or how do folks access those funds? Does it expire at any point?
Do you mean the eviction prevention rental assistance or?
I guess I don't know the specific name, but previously I worked at Lighthouse Shelter, and you would help folks get back on their feet through a rental assistance program. It lasted 6 months, and they were given small stipends in order to access rentals. Do we have any programs like that currently, folks that are seeking to get out of certain housing situations or houseless situations?
Sure, we have a number of programs that we either administer, like boutique programs where we provide funding to partners like Cliff or like the Lighthouse or the Partnership for Children, Youth, and Families, where we provide grant funds that have the different they come from different pots of funding. So it really depends on where it's coming from and what the length of assistance might be. But it sounds like you might be talking about a rapid rehousing program, which is designed to quickly get people back on their feet who might be experiencing homelessness, usually families who are experiencing homelessness. And, we know that families, when they, when they first become homeless, that's a critical time to get them rehoused. And then typically with the right case management and supportive services, they can get back on their feet and get, keep themselves sustainably housed in that 6-month period. That's a little bit different than when we're working with persons who are experiencing chronic homelessness.
Right. And if you don't mind, I have one more question and then I'll pass it on to the next commissioner. So in regards to creating more affordable housing in Arundel, I'd really love some insight on the 3 experts here on how we approach this conversation with our community, because we have skilled developers here who might want to take advantage of this situation, but having a conversation with the community that's going to be built in is a whole nother situation. So how do we create more awareness for housing these 1,000 people on the waiting list right now in our community, and use our platform that we have currently to positively spread that message?
Well, I would venture to say it's a tough discussion that you have to have, and you have to be thick-skinned about it. In my many years of doing this, also, as a developer, the Housing Commission is a developer. We are developing and redeveloping housing. One of the things that happens when it comes to affordable housing is, do you have the wherewithal to withstand the fact that somebody doesn't like it? And oftentimes when somebody doesn't like where it's going or where it's going to be, or that it's down the street from me or whatever, everybody pulls backwards. Well, I've always been of the ilk that is the wrong thing to do. I think that you have to say, unfortunately, we need it, and this is where it's going. You can make a decision to go move somewhere else. By the way, affordable housing is everywhere, and a lot of times it's near you and you don't even realize it. So it's just people who have the backbone, the thick skin, and the ability to withstand that and work with the people around it to say, listen, we're going to make good on the promise that we're going to build it and it's going to be okay, and keep it there. So I think that's really important. We haven't been really good at that in this county in our history. I'm just going to be honest with you. We haven't. I can rattle off developments that have fallen by the wayside because of the wow-ass, I call them. So and that's unfortunate, because that's units lost. You really just have to persevere. The developers are willing to do it. The other problem with Anne Arundel County is it's expensive to acquire the land and to build these types of developments. There are a lot of developers that want to do it. It's a county that's kind of a little overdeveloped. There's not much green space left. What is available is extremely expensive. And when you're trying to do affordable housing, every nickel counts. It's not like luxury where you're going to have these real high rents and these real exclusive amenities that people will pay top dollar for. When you do an affordable housing development, you barely break even on the construction budget. There's just no wiggle room. So if the price of the land goes up, the deal falls apart. And so we have all those things working against us, but we can overcome them It just really takes a concerted effort. And I'll tell you, the current administration has really been very strong and very forward, very aggressive in punching through some of these. And, we really need to make sure that it continues. Sorry, that's my soapbox.
Well, sorry, just real quick, I think the workforce housing policy that this administration got through, again, that's taking into account the high cost of land and saying, well, hey, we recognize the land here is expensive. We're going to give you some density bonuses in exchange for those affordable units. So it's really a creative response to that. It's one tool in the toolkit. It's not going to solve all the issues, but that I think kind of gets to what Cliff is talking about.
And I think there has to be a concerted, almost campaign to help people understand who needs affordable housing. So whatever perception you have in your mind about who needs affordable housing is very different from the reality of actually who needs it. It's persons of all races, all backgrounds, different types of occupations. It's really unbelievable, the need. And once you really see what the definitions of affordable housing or persons in need, many people don't realize that they themselves actually are in need of affordable housing solutions, because most families are paying over 57% of their income towards housing needs. And if you're doing that, you're considered to be in danger of being over your means. And so I don't think a lot of people understand the need in terms of the face of affordable housing. And that's one thing. I think all of us are on the Arundel Housing Coalition. They created a campaign called the New Face of Affordable Housing, just to communicate that message, because it has to be a message that's driven home so people change their perception of what affordable housing is and who needs it.
Yeah, that's a good reminder. That would be, if you guys are ever if you have ideas on where that presentation at your meeting or another meeting where you think it would be useful, that's a great reminder, Melissa.
I hate the term affordable housing. I hate it. It's just stereotype. It's discrimination.
It's almost taboo.
The two words speak discrimination right there.
Yeah.
I wish we would stop using it, and that we don't. Why are we stereotyping it? Why are we targeting it? We're just building housing that people need. As soon as we put a pin and a flag in it, you've biased it. You've stereotyped it. You've almost killed it. And I wish we would stop doing that. I really do.
I'd like to, at this point in time, we have two commissioners that have been waiting to ask a couple of questions, and I want to take their questions and then move swiftly to Clifton's presentation. And this has been a very good, engaging debate. And I'm going to start with Commissioner Kim, our student who now has full voting rights, thanks to her fierce advocacy for that position at the county council. And Commissioner Kim, please ask your question.
Oh, I mean, thank you for the introduction. So, first of all, thank you. This discussion has been extremely enlightening. I'm still in high school. I've never owned, I've never really rented a house or anything like that. So this is all kind of like a new thing to me. This is new information. I wanted to know more about the eviction prevention program that you mentioned, what exactly that entails for, even the homeowner or the person who is in need of that program of assistance.
Sure. It's a program that's set up. It's intended to be a renter program. Other jurisdictions have set up programs that are more tailored to landlords. This program is, the renters come into us and they say, we need assistance. We have a COVID related loss of income that happened after March 2020, and we can't pay all of our rent. We have back rent or arrears that we haven't paid. And so we provide up to 12 months of assistance for those arrears. When we first started the program, we were helping people with prospective rent. As the program has been used and money is starting to dwindle down, we're not providing future rent. In limited cases, we may provide 1 month's rent, so that if depending on the timing, but You know, it's really important now as funding is running out for this program that people look for other options and look for affordable housing that they might be able to pay or they might be able to afford rather. So we're working on kind of revamping our program as funding is, you know, the federal funding that's supported it is coming to an end, but it's still available. And it's available to renters at 50% of area median income. And that's a very low income family in Anne Arundel County. And it's helping people get back on their feet and be able to stay in their homes. And it's renters, not homeowners.
Commissioner Hatcher.
Okay, so I have two questions, and I'm gonna be quick because I know we still have another presentation. The first one, I kind of want to elaborate a little more what Commissioner Edwards was speaking on in regards to homelessness. You know, if you look, there's a rise of numbers of homeless families, veterans, people with disabilities. And my question, and I did a little research in the Interagency Council on Homelessness gave stats in January of 2020 that about 6,360 Marylanders were reported as homeless. Is there any plans in the future? I know this is affordable housing, but to kind of help subset that rise in number? And if so, how does that plan look? And then my second question, I know that we're still waiting for the presidential budget to get passed, and government agencies are under continual resolution. How is your budget or the budget for these programs being affected?
Sure, I can take the homelessness side of things. So ACDS actually, we coordinate the county's continuum of care to end homelessness. And that's a planning body that's required by HUD because HUD funds provides some continuum of care funding, which is competitive funding that we apply for on behalf of the county every year. We've been pretty successful, and that requires lots of planning. If you want to look on I'll put in our chat, our website, we have, you know, our different various annual plans that include a planning for homelessness component. But, you know, there are three prongs to homelessness planning. One is prevention. The other one is, you know, providing emergency shelter, which that's kind of a last resort. And then the third one is providing permanent housing. And that comes through vouchers, through partners like the Housing Commission, and through federal funds that are provided through the continuum of care. So those are kind of the three components. And you can also find information about the continuum of care planning meetings that happen on a monthly basis on our website. If everybody's welcome to attend those.
And I'll share with you, the county, I think, has just done a yeoman's job during COVID, especially with the rise in homelessness. There's a real strong homeless partnership. We meet quite often and we solve problems basically one family at a time. Most people didn't realize it, but the county used some of the emergency funds to work with certain hotels to give long-term, and I mean, rather than just a night, months and months assistance to families that were homeless as a result of COVID or other types of tragedies. And the county's been assisting them with these hotel rooms and keeping them safe and warm for quite a while. But, you know, unfortunately, those funds eventually will run out. And so we do have to come up with other ways to do that. But fortunately, this county was very creative in helping as many families as they can. And I mean, they really went searching for them to say, we have a place for you. And thankfully, because the federal funds were made available, but like I said, they will run out.
Okay, Cliff, are you ready to make your presentation?
Sure, let me share my screen. My mouse went to sleep, so let me. Can you see this okay?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So I won't belabor a lot of the things that Melissa said because there's so many similarities between the design and the federal components of housing authorities. But as I wanted to share with you, our mission also, very similar. The Housing Commission's mission, where you'll see a lot of housing authorities, and there are 33,400 housing authorities across the nation, many of which are very small and very remote and very rural areas. And you mostly hear the bad stories about the big ones, but there are lots of little ones that do really, really good work out there. But part of our mission is to increase the availability of affordable housing, and to also improve the community quality of life and economic vitality of the communities that we do have and that we do serve, so that they not only become an affordable place to live, but a place that has the correct level of services that enable families and allow families to move upward, right? If they so desire, they have the resources available on site. So we do have career connection centers on site. We do have offices of community action agency, nutrition programs, wellness programs, boys and girls clubs are on site, Head Start centers are on site. So the families have the availability of a lot of different services on site that help to create a community that will help to enhance the equity and their abilities, so that they hopefully may not need affordable housing for an extended or a long period of time. Every family comes in and says, I don't hope to be here long. And we always say, listen, the day you say goodbye to us is a great day, and hopefully it's for the right reason, right? That means we all did our jobs, right? So that is really part of our mission, to promote self-sufficiency and asset development of families. So not only to get them in a better place, but we want to make sure that if they want to be a homeowner, they want to have a decent job, if they want to do things to build their assets, to build their independent wealth, that we know that is the key oftentimes to breaking cycles of poverty, as well as getting as many of our 17 and 18-year-olds into higher education. We know higher education is a poverty cycle breaker too. So these are the types of things that are in our mission as the Housing Commission. And then also to create communities that are equitable and diverse, not only just in what most people would think would be like race and ethnicity, but also in incomes and things. There are role models, and there are people who live nearby that other families can depend on for practical and actual assistance every day. So that makes a healthy community. As Melissa said, they were enabled in 1937. Well, the Housing Commission didn't come along till 1968, so we're kind of the baby of the group here. And same thing as the Housing Authority of the City of Annapolis, we have 7 commissioners, and they're appointed by the county executive. We are a quasi-governmental independent agency, which means we basically report to no one. That's both a good thing and a bad thing. So our commissioners are appointed by the county. We receive our funding from a variety of different sources, but all things said and done, we're kind of an independent body. And as such, in order to receive the funding, we have to follow many of the federal, state, and local regulations to be able to do that. We have 70 employees, and we are working in 12 different locations throughout Anne Arundel County. And we do have a variety of programs also. Just for your knowledge, at one point, we had over 1,000 public housing units. Currently, we only have 472 public housing units. By 2024, we will have no public housing units left in our portfolio. You're probably going, oh my God, what did you do? Where did they go? As you know, over the last 20 to 25 years, public housing is Congress's unwanted stepchild. They have underfunded it, they have defunded it, they have destroyed public housing as we know it. And so we realized that, we saw the downward trend, so we have converted our public housing to project-based vouchers. It's a much better scenario for the residents. It gives them tremendous flexibility, and the rents are calculated along the same formulas, but it positions the properties for far greater sustainability and to be able to pay their bills and to actually put some money aside so that, if they need to do a big project somewhere down the lane, they can do that. Public housing could no longer do that. So we're proud of this, and we have already started these conversions, as had Melissa with some of hers. And we are about 2/3 of the way along in these conversions. But as we do the conversions, we're spending tens of millions of dollars to refurbish, renovate, and build new units on the existing sites. So that's one of the ways that we have been able to add affordable housing, is to look at the site plan and say, under the density ordinances here in the county, we can add new apartments, new townhouses, and we are trying to do that with every conversion that we do of public housing. So our numbers are increasing as we go along. So we have converted those to project-based voucher housing, and so there are 614 units now of project-based voucher housing. The state partnership rental housing program has allowed us to build 39 units. Our housing choice voucher program is a bit larger than Melissa's. She's in the, I think she said 384 and 200 project-based. We have 2,250 vouchers spread throughout the county. We also have an allotment of mainstream vouchers, which we applied for, which are targeted to families with disabilities. We have now received 100 of those. The Housing Opportunity Program for persons with AIDS, we also administer 45 vouchers with Aaron's agency. We partnered to do a supportive housing voucher program for folks transitioning from homelessness that also have health issues. 48 vouchers, and we have a Veterans Affairs voucher program that we have a partnership with the Veterans Administration, and we do 38 vouchers. So currently we're serving about 3,600 families throughout the county with our portfolio of housing services and programs. And just, well, I figured maybe you want to know this, how much money do you get to do this? Our budget is $39 million a year to be able to administer all of these programs and growing. And that's a good thing. Someone mentioned what's going on with the president's budget. What's going on with the budget this year? How is that going to impact our programs? For a long time, it was just whack-a-mole, whack-a-mole, whack-a-mole. Every single program just was getting whacked every year. Within the last few years, we were stable funded, or we got slight bumps. Things look decent, not great this year, but we can say we're not going to take a loss. We don't think. I think we're going to see some upward bumps on some of these. Is it going to make a dent in my waiting list? Now, I want you to look at my numbers. My voucher list, waiting list is 19,000 families. 19,000 families. And when I combine all of my lists and I take away people who've applied on multiple lists and just how many are there that are just non-duplicated, there are 28,000 people on my waiting list. That translates into just under 100,000 people in total who are waiting for housing that they can afford. The wait times for my vouchers are 7 to 10 years, if you're lucky. And other programs and communities, the wait time is anywhere from 3 to 7 years. So when we were talking about that earlier, and we were saying, oh my gosh, I'm sitting here going, oh my gosh, wait till they see my numbers, because this keeps me awake at night. This keeps my board awake at night. We have at the Board of Commissioners for the Housing Commission at the next meeting is probably going to close these waiting lists. While people would say, well, that makes sense, it sends a terrible message to the public. So that decision to close a list comes with a huge burden as the message that's sent out. But on the flip side, the need is so amazingly great in this county for housing that folks can afford. It's just a very expensive county. Now, some of these people on the waiting list, we'll have a few from Baltimore City, a few from Howard County, a few from PG County, but not many. The bulk of them are Anne Arundel County citizens. And where are they? They are tripled up in homes with multiple generations. They are in the hotels. They are couch surfing. They are getting help anywhere they can. They are, in the worst possible situations. Some of them, are just living way above their means right now. And that's paycheck to paycheck and rent payment to rent payment. And we hear from them all the time. And nothing gives us greater anxiety and anguish is to know that we just cannot meet these needs in this county. So the need is absolutely amazing. But like I said earlier, how does it get this way? How do we get here? And it's just extraordinary that we see this. I also wanted to talk about, because I think it's really important to your commission, is about why housing agencies really need to focus their energy on affirmatively furthering fair housing. Unfortunately, in way too many jurisdictions and way too many agencies, this is taken way too lightly. I do not take this lightly, nor does my team, nor does my board. And we have a very detailed, very deep statement on how and why we will affirmatively further fair housing. And we know what the issues are, and we're not going to sugarcoat them, and we're not going to try to pretend that they don't exist. They are there. And every moment of every day that we are open and working, we have to work towards these principles of making sure that people have fair access, that these communities are holistically healthy, equitable, diverse, with opportunities, and everybody that needs it has the ability to apply for it. Now, not everybody's going to be eligible for it. But, someone said earlier, and I wanted to say that, like, the federal regulations allow us to determine eligibility, but guess what, for the voucher program and the subsidy programs, but guess what they don't allow us to do? We can certify eligible, but we can't certify wonderful. And I always wanted to put that on a t-shirt and say, listen, to the owners and the landlords out there, do your due diligence with a voucher holder like you would for any other resident out there, and I always say, if you're on the fence, ask them if you can do a home visit. Go look at where they're staying now. If it's pretty well cared for, they're probably going to do the same thing with you. So there are ways that owner can do that, but we encourage them, find ways to work with us. Don't find reasons not to, right? That's not what this is about. But we have a very high success rate with owners participating in our programs. We are currently paying out in excess of $2.1 million per month in rent checks to owners in the county. And that is to over 775 different agencies, landlords, mom and pops, and management companies throughout Anne Arundel County. We are the largest rent payer in Anne Arundel County right now, and probably will be forever. Melissa said, and it's really important, folks that are in our programs probably have some of the greatest rights provided to them that you will ever see and find, right? So they are entitled at every step of the way for any adverse action they feel that has come their way. We offer them reviews, hearings, and grievances. And for the Anne Arundel County, because we don't want to be biased and we believe in the fair principles, we have actually hired a retired judge who was a judge in Anne Arundel County, who we believe is diverse and representative of the majority of the population that we serve, so that they get a fair hearing, they get to speak and have their time before any decision is made final. And I will tell you, just if you're probably wondering, well, how many decisions get overturned? Well, let me tell you, there aren't many hearings and grievances, and that's a good sign, because we don't like to terminate people's leases very often, and we don't like to remove them from the programs very often. That is a failure all the way around, 360-degree failure when you have to terminate a lease or terminate a voucher. So you don't want to do that. But yes, oftentimes they do get overturned. The hearing officer, the judge says, let's give them another chance. And we do. And that's why that's there, so that they have that opportunity to feel if they were not well taken care of, or they were discriminated against, or they do feel that we were creating an adverse action. They have opportunities to have their story told and to have someone listen impartially. We recently, we're really have become very sensitive about customer service and customer touch points. We believe in the electronic era that the best way to get people to apply, to get to services, and to maintain their housing is to make sure they have access. So our agency has just recently converted to systems where they can interact with us electronically. They can apply, they can communicate, they can recertify, they can review, they can look at their bills, they can look at their finances all through portals. And we're really happy to add these new accessibility features to the citizens of Anne Arundel County as part of our services to them. And I know this has run long, and but you can visit our website here and see the different services that we provide our citizens, and more about the Housing Commission. And I will say, I have to say something. If I forget, I'll be so mad at myself. On hopefully, fingers crossed, first week of March, the Housing Commission will be adding its newest property. We will be purchasing an apartment community that we will transfer into an affordable housing solution. It'll be an affordable housing solution for persons who are rated on the highest of the list for homelessness. So they will be homeless families that will move into this new apartment community. They will get 1 year of assisted housing, and on site will be a counseling and service center where they will get services right on site. And we're hoping in year 2 or 3 that we will build additional units on this site and provide more units that are specifically designated towards families who are currently homeless. So that is a new community that will be specifically tailored to families who are currently homeless. So sorry, I was really excited about that. So
it's great. Thank you for your presentation, Cliff. And now I would entertain questions from the group, and I see Commissioner Clapsaddle has a question. Commissioner Clapsaddle?
May I refer to you as Cliff?
Sure.
So I think it's very interesting. It's very interesting that you are converting everything to the electronic age, to the information age, to the facility. But these people may not have access to this. So do you have an arrangement with the libraries that have free use of computers? It's wonderful to have access, but if you can't get to it, then it's worthless.
Yeah, I mean,
so I'm asking you what's been done to implement that.
Yeah, and at our sites, like I said, we're spread. We have 12 sites throughout Anne Arundel County, and folks can still come to the sites and do things by paper. They can still do things the old way if they want to. This is just kind of an enhanced step for them to be able to, if they don't feel like Anne Arundel County is not great with public transportation. So to try to get to the offices and stuff to do things like in our headquarters is in the Glen Burnie Town Center. But we know a lot of people can't get there. So this was just an added feature, but they can still do it the old fashioned way. They can call us and we'll mail them what they need, and those types of things. But yes, people do go to the library and they do go to our sites throughout the county and sit down with staff and be able to get things done.
We're actually required to provide additional reasonable accommodations if persons need assistance in filling out applications or translation services or any type of other assistive technology needs.
That's right. We have forms in Spanish, Korean, German, and Braille. So HUD requires, housing authorities have a lot of requirements on them. The federal regulations for housing authorities would fill an entire room.
Any further questions from any of the commissioners?
I guess I just wanted to say congratulations on the new community and Mr. Martin. That sounds really exciting, and I look forward to hearing more about it. That sounds really progressive for our county, and it's just very exciting.
I'm my fingers crossed. Buying a big community, everything has to go just right. So, but it looks like it's a go. So,
before we end, I just had one additional thing that I might ask, and then we'll move on for the rest of our agenda. What else can the county do? We have a county executive. We have elected county officials. The county has a budget. We're talking here about public-private partnerships that I think would make the most sense. So what else could the county do? And is there any model in Maryland for counties that are doing something different that makes sense?
I would just say, continue to think about innovative policies that help us create more affordable housing, like the workforce housing policy. There are other counties that have created, moderately priced dwelling units or inclusionary zoning. That's one thing. Looking at, affordable housing trust and kind of building the toolkit in terms of resources that can be used for affordable housing. But the one thing I wanted to note, in addition to just, doing things that help produce more units that are affordable, I think one area where we lack a lot of resources and investment would be providing the operating funds that go along with the capital funds in order to operate these, especially when you're talking about people experiencing chronic homelessness who have maybe other special needs such as substance abuse and dealing with mental health issues. You don't just build the units, you need to have staff there to support them. And our funds, especially at ACDS, are mostly capital funds, the funds that we get through HUD for like our community development block grant funding. So we're able to go ahead and use those funds to build properties, but we lack the ongoing operating support that will help, staff those units. And so we have partners like the Lighthouse or Arundel House of Hope and many others. And it's hard for them to come up with enough operating grants to really support that. And part of the thing is when you're investing in projects, we love Cliff as a partner or Melissa as a partner because we know that they have, they're doing they have these long-term operating subsidies. They've got vouchers for their clients that helps fuel the operating cost or fund the operating cost for those projects.
Right.
But many of our partners, they don't have that long-term subsidy. And before we make an investment or make a loan, these are loans that we're putting on the property. We need to know that whoever the operator is that they have the long-term pro forma, they have a long-term pro forma and will have the operating funds to keep it maintained and going.
And not only that, for affordable housing, the developers have to apply for either low-income housing tax credits through the state and use our programs, and get funding through maybe the federal home loan banks or whatever. And those are the mechanisms that work. But guess what? They do not like to fund the service provision in the operating budgets. They do, even though they know that the population that's served is going to need a lot of different services, they will not fund them. And it puts the developers who are trying to build these communities, it puts them in a real adverse situation as to how they will fund it, because the operating budgets are normally very lean. And so Erin's right that, if there's a creative way to bring those supportive services to these affordable housing communities, we're fortunate that we can do it, but we're a different animal. But a lot of the developers won't be in the same situation. And that makes it very tough because the populations do need those services. Those ancillary services are very critical.
Okay. This point in time, I'd like to thank our panelists for a very engaging and informative presentation. A lot of food for thought. My idea is that there were some ideas that y'all floated to us. Could you be so kind as to email those suggestions briefly to the Human Resource Officer, Asha Smith, who is not here tonight because she's taking mediation training, which we are required to have someone on our commission that can meet those requirements. So that's why Asha was not here to greet you. And so if you all could take a little time to send us that, I think then I could send it out to the commission and we could then start to talk about what kind of action that we would like to take. For example, you talked about the foreclosure program. I can think of a number of groups like the United Black Clergy, the Faith Council of Anne Arundel County, the NAACP, that might benefit from the presentation or at least the information on that they could get out through their social media networks. And there are other things we might be able to do. And if there's some things that you particularly think would be important for us to put on our web page on the county website, we would be happy to do that, working with you cooperatively, all three of you. And so those are some concluding remarks that I have. But again, I want to thank all three of you. And at this point in time, we will move on with our agenda. And I'd like to, before we do that, recognize that Commissioner Kim, who spoke, and Commissioner Kim and Commissioner Saeed joined the meeting some time ago and will be recorded as present. Okay, at this point in time, the first thing I have to do is apologize to Mike Lofton, who was identified as Jim Lofton on our agenda. My mistake, my bad. I apologize, Mr. Lofton. And at this point in time, we're going to move to the presentation that Commissioner Call and Mr. Lofton want to make to request support for a plaque or historical display recognizing past racial discrimination and recent changes in the community at the historic Beverly Triton Park. So I guess start out with Commissioner Call. I think you're a panelist, Mr. Lofton, is that correct?
I'm not sure how I'm treated here, and I'm quite the greenhorn in doing Zoom presentations. So
okay.
I do have a PowerPoint that I'd like to do on a screen share, but I'm a rookie. Somebody's going to have to help me.
Okay.
Yeah, you're more than welcome to go first. At the bottom of your screen, there should be a green button that says share screen.
Okay. Well, Jaquela, why don't you go ahead and kind of set the scene if you want to, and how we met and all that sort of thing.
Okay, of course. So Mr. Lofton is a member of District 7, where I reside as well. That's mostly the South County area. I would like to let you all know that he reached out to me directly and requested this, and I just thought it was a fantastic idea because why not? We still have these issues today, so I really think it's great to highlight discrimination and the history of Beverly Triton Beach.
Okay. Well, and I think this is perhaps a pivot point, and that when progress is made, I think we ought to recognize it. And I think progress has been made here. If you would indulge me for just a minute, I was fascinated by the discussion. There's some very energetic, passionate folks that are working on affordable housing, and that's very gratifying to know. I'm an old marketing guy, and one of the things you never want to do is lose a customer you already have while you're trying to add new. My observation in District 7 is that, and I believe they're affordable, a lot of the affordable housing down this way is in the mobile home parks. And I think they're at risk. I think they're at risk because of the proximity to Washington. And I sense, I've seen some rezoning come in the last couple of rounds of comprehensive rezoning that could change the use and convert those properties to $1 million townhouses 25 minutes from the Capitol. I would urge the commission to be alert about that. I don't know of any pending proposals, but I believe you've got a substantial inventory of affordable housing in the mobile home parks down this way. So I'll come back to my original subject on that. Let me see if I can do this. So all right, Mikey, how are you gonna find this, huh? I don't even know how to find this thing. Give me another minute, folks. Hang on. All right, I'm not doing well.
Do you have the document open on your screen?
Hold on. Yeah, I think I just signed myself out of the whole Zoom there.
No, you're still here.
I am? Okay. All right. Did that do it?
Nope, I still see you. Did you
Oh,
hit the share screen button yet?
no, I did lose this. Wait a minute. Share screen. How about now?
Nope, I still see you.
Oh my God.
When you hit the share screen button, you would have to choose a document that's open in your background, or you could choose your whole screen.
Okay. I'm going to back up and start over.
Okay.
All right, let's see. Aha.
Chair Peterson, while Mr. Lofton is getting organized, and I certainly empathize with him, I see he is already organized.
Yes.
Never mind.
I've never been accused of being organized. So, so just a bit about me. I'm on the the county's Recreation Advisory Board, but I'm here tonight as an individual citizen. I'm not representing the board, but I've paid a lot of attention for the last really 20 years or so about recreation and park services. And in particularly, I've been very tightly focused on trying to get the public access to the bay. And so I've had a lot of the encounters with communities and some of the pushback stuff that was talked about earlier. In that process of exploring this, I was stunned to find the inventory of publicly owned lands all over this county, much of it acquired through program Open Space, which is to provide public recreation access, not just to the water, but all over to meet the public's need. And it's really quite an innovative idea, but I think it's really fallen short of its, if not its promise, its potential to bring the public better recreation facilities. And from my time on the recreation board and talking to some of the folks at DNR, it's increasingly people of moderate means, people of color that are using the parks, the beaches, and the like. And the public agencies are really failing to meet that demand. We saw it extensively last summer at both the state parks and at the county's parks, turning away thousands of families on a weekend trying to get to the public parks and having to resort to it's called reservations. I call it rationing systems to manage the impacts. There's a lot of room for improvement. That's really not my mission here tonight, but I'd be happy to talk more. And I would urge the commission to maybe ask the Rec and Parks director to come and meet with you sometime. So what I want to talk to you particularly about tonight is Beverly Triton Beach Park. A magnificent piece of property along the bay shoreline, about a mile of sandy beach. And I if you're not familiar where it is, all right, here we go. So this is the yellow line is Maryland 214 going down south of Edgewater. That you can see where the South River is, down the Mayo Peninsula, and it ends on that big peninsula down there. There are a couple of large public waterfront properties down that way. I'm curious if anybody has visited Beverly Triton. Has anybody ever been there? All right, well, put it on your list if you haven't been there. It's magnificent. It's under construction right now, which is part of my story. But when it reopens, I would really encourage you to go. So Beverly Triton was a very popular beach. This is a photo of the property in about 1955. This is pre-Bay Bridge. I guess the Bay Bridge was actually built in 52, but this is where white Washington went to get away from the heat and humidity of Washington summers, and it drew thousands of people. And I have a beach picture here somewhere. There, very, very popular. There was entertainment, there was dancing, there was slot machines, there was all kinds of things. And it was a very popular destination for a long, long time. But not for everybody. I mean, the segregation, the discrimination was in your face. It was blatant, and it operated that way until the Civil Rights Act. And the owner of the property, a man named Kolb, who owned it, tried to set up a private club as a pretense that this was a private club and they could choose whoever came in and came out. And he was challenged in court, and rather than open the park to everyone, he closed it. And it ultimately came under the eye of a developer who was going to put a couple thousand residences on there, 250,000 square feet of commercial space and the like. The neighboring communities, I think wisely, were horrified at the prospect of all the development on this narrow peninsula. And and this is a model that happens all over Anne Arundel County. They approached elected officials and persuaded then Jim Lighthizer to pursue purchase of this property, along with several others in the area, under program open space to be a public park. Unfortunately, the make it a public park promise was not kept. And there were studies, there were innumerable pretense delays. A substantial portion of the beach was actually leased to an adjacent private community. So that if you're clever enough to get the public to buy your beach and give it to you for $1 a year, and then keep everybody else out, you've really pulled one off. You've pulled a fast one. So this is the way it was until about 2 years ago, when somebody mentioned to the Capitol that this was going on. They wrote a big expose story and called out DNR and the county for not conforming to the requirements of program open space. And now the county has stepped in and produced a development plan that, and here's a satellite shot just to give you a little bit more. It's 340 acres, purchased in '85 for $3.25 million, public recreation dollars. So that's about 35 years ago. It has been open in a very primitive way for a few years, and construction began earlier this year. This is a terrible picture. If you go to the Rec and Parks website, you can actually see what's proposed there. At long last, this is going to be a decent public park. It's going to have safe parking, ADA access points, ADA compatible trails, rinse off facilities. Hopefully one day the bay will be so clean that you don't have to rinse off. But right now, if you go in the bay, you ought to rinse off when you come out. That's going to be there. It's going to be quite nice. It's under construction now. It's about a $4 million upgrade. And so I certainly haven't followed it over its entire history, but this has gone from an embarrassment is not the right word. It's certainly much more heinous than that, to a place that the public, all of the public, will be able to come and enjoy their land in a safe and convenient fashion. I think that's a victory, some progress that ought to be celebrated. I don't really have a specific proposal here tonight. I don't know if any of you ever met Rick Anthony. Rick was the former director of Recreation and Parks, and he took some abuse and some criticism for his advocacy of opening these parks up and providing basic improvements. He's actually moved to the West Coast now, and I don't blame him. He also led an effort to get some recognition at the site of Mayo Beach Park, which is not far from this, where there are some displays documenting the historical segregation at Bay Beaches. And I guess really what I wanted to do tonight was just alert you to this. I think it's important. I think that sometimes a victory can attract more attention to issues, and perhaps attract some advocates that would join. There's much more to be done in this area. I think that for folks that visit this park and others, there's an opportunity to educate. And I'm afraid that if there isn't some advocacy to step into the process now, and it doesn't have to be done, during this construction period, it could be done spring of next year when the park reopens. But there ought to be something that notes the way it was and the way it is. I recognize some folks that made that happen, and hopefully it will serve to motivate for more public recreation. Um, the there's been increasing studies about the profile of people that rely on public parks and public recreation facilities, and they're not going to the country clubs, they're not going to the yacht clubs, they're going to the public parks and the public beaches, and frankly those are not meeting the public's need these days. So that's kind of my speech. I met Jacala over on Sands Road. We showed up at a horrible park project that the county was doing over there, and hopefully we're going to get some changes made on that. And when I saw that she was the District 7 member of the Human Relations Commission, I said, aha, there's a connection to be made there, and hopefully we can make something happen. So that's my speech. If this has any traction with the commission, I'd be glad to be a convener of a couple of parties that could move this forward. So I'll be quiet.
Commissioner Call.
You're muted.
Thank you for the reminder. I forgot I was muted. Thank you for your presentation, Mike. It was amazing. I mean, you touched base on my whole summary I had typed up to let you guys know. The $1 a year lease really bothered me.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, that was a very long time that they had that property leased. I mean, every article I read, the residents of that community was like, we thought this was set in stone. They didn't even realize, you know, that it could be turned over. So they were very unhappy about that. But, you know, the article I read said that the former county executive Lighthizer was unaware that that lease even existed or was signed during his time in office. And said that it was done by someone else in his office. So, you know, with that being said, between the segregation and the misinformed information that was done in the office, in the county executive office at that time, to me, is just outrageous. You know, I think just like we did at the People's Park, I think it's great if we put a plaque here, some type of presentation to display the history, you know, where we started, what took place in order to make a change, and then what came from the change. So I've been told the tentative date of reopening the park is November of 2022. If we do see that day, I hope that the Human Relations Commission, can support putting this there in order to display the history, because I do truly believe that Anne Arundel County is the best place for all. And in order to prove that, I think we should show our growth throughout the years, you know, where we started and where we are now.
At this point in time, the first thing I'd like to ask is for Mike, can you release the screen?
I will. I'll probably either show you pictures of my grandchildren or get lost entirely. We'll see what happens here. All right.
There we
Did
go.
it.
Thank you, Mike. At this point in time, I think what I might suggest that we do is to ask Commissioner Call to head up to work with Mike and any of the local folks and any other groups that come to mind. That might be the NAACP, the Caucus of African American Leaders, the United Black Clergy, the county faith-based council, the Faith Council of Anne Arundel County, the Youth Council of Anne Arundel County. I'm listing a lot of them, but I think in the Anne Arundel County Public Library System, I think I can work with you. We can come up with a list of folks, and then see if there's some momentum to work with us, the Human Relations Commission, to do a similar thing that like we did, I think you're suggesting, Commissioner Call, with the Perry plaque that's at the People's Park. So, I see a Commissioner Hatcher, so recognize Commissioner Hatcher.
I just have a question. Thank you so much, both Commissioner Call and Mike Lofton for the presentation. It is very inspiring to see change. I do have a question. Some tradition is so hard to change, especially like the culture of environments. So my question to you, the area where the beach is, how inviting is it now, or how diverse is it now? I know it's under construction, but like, in current today, how is it inviting to people, Black, brown, Asian, different cultures? Do you know how the community reacts to diversity in current time?
Well, I really would. I'm not going to issue a single characterization. I think, if you look at census tract data, for example, you can get a lot of insight into the character of communities. But I think it's like in many places, there are folks that are very welcoming and there are folks that aren't. And I've encountered both. And I think that if we're smart, and this is a project that the commission would embrace, I think we can identify some allies that are in the community and engage them. I think that obviously there's a reason that that neighbors often resist parks, and that's a whole nother discussion about why that is that way. And I think that it needs attention and being addressed. I know I'm dancing around your question because I don't think there is a simple single answer to that. There's a spectrum of people with attitudes and welcoming minds and the like. And I think we can find a network of receptive folks.
If I might interject, we had a similar type discussion when we considered the Perry plaque. And so I think, the commission needs to decide what its role in a positive, activist way is in communicating the message that Anne Arundel County is the best place for all. Right. And these kind of monuments can sometimes do that. I might also add that having the former Parks Commissioner, Rick Anthony, very supportive of this, I think is a good thing. And it might be a chance to even ask him to come back and get some recognition for his role, because he is a well-regarded member of, or was a well-regarded member of Anne Arundel County. And I think contacting him and seeing if he could help us with the support would help in terms of where we want to take this. So we're running up against our time here. So what I want to do at this point in time is thank Mike and thank Commissioner Call for the presentation, and suggest that Commissioner Call and I will be in communication about strategy in terms of how we're going to go ahead and reach out. But I think the first thing we need to do before we reach out is the commission needs to come to some decision about, again, how forward and progressive we want to be in advocating for Anne Arundel County to be the best place for all. And this is one way we can demonstrate that, or we could move away from that. So I'll put that discussion as an item for our next meeting, and Commissioner Call and I will be in communication. Is everybody comfortable with that approach?
Yes, I think that's a great idea.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all. At this point in time, I'd like to recommend that I get a hold of our HRO, and since she is not here to give us her presentation, that I ask her to put together the presentation in the form of a memo that I can get out to the commission, I think, which would keep us up to date with events in the county executive's office, any administrative issues that cropped up etc. Having said that, I believe we have no new business. And we have no new business. And
Eugene, can I give the report for Annapolis?
oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I missed that on the
That's
agenda.
okay. I know
I'm
it
going to leave
won't
you
be
all.
long.
I'm going to leave you all. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, so February 7th, Annapolis Human Relations Commission met. They had a guest speaker, Reverend Marguerite Morris, who represented the Police Accountability Board Coalition. And her purpose, she did a presentation, and the purpose was to seek recommendation for what they're planning is setting up an advisory panel on the Police Review Board in Annapolis. So she gave a presentation just to get recommendation for this advisory panel that would be made up of people of different backgrounds, some that's serving, not actively serving, that have served as police officers, some civilians. So a number of members that will be on this advisory board to help kind of review cases or concerns and things of that nature to give input. There can even be a mediation or a slight trial depending on how far the advisory board needed to go. So she gave a great discussion on how the community gets back involved with police and the accountability of police officers. So it's the advisory panel for Police Review Board in Annapolis. The other thing I wanted to mention, in December, Mr. Stephen Waddy gave a presentation on critical race theory. It was titled "The Facts and the Lies Over School Curriculum." And Chairman Kelly definitely recommended us reaching out to Mr. Waddy, it's W-A-D-D-Y. He's actually a part of the Anne Arundel County chapter of NAACP. And Chairman Kelly really recommended us reaching out and potentially having him speak to the approaching CRT that we'll be hosting in the upcoming months, if that's still a go. And so I was going to send an email to see if he would be interested. That is all I have. And you have 2 minutes left.
Thank you, Commissioner. At this point in time, we have no new business. We have no old business. And so I'd like to remind everybody that our next commission meeting, I believe, is March, I think it's March 17th. Is that correct? I think I got the right date.
That's correct.
Okay, March 17th at 6 p.m. And I want to ask for a motion to adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Clapsaddle. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Said. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Anybody opposed? No. Okay. Again, I'd like to thank everybody who participated in our webinar tonight, and thank those who tuned in, and remind everybody that it is recorded. It will be in the cloud. And so there will be additional opportunities for people to check it out. And with that, I want to thank all the commissioners for giving us your time and attention. And with that, I would adjourn the meeting. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Recording stopped.
You have a great night.
Thank you
Thank
so much.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Good meeting. Bye.